What is up, everybody? I am back again with another podcast or episode, should I say? And I want to try to keep this one on a little bit on the lower end. I think with the other podcasts I've done before, I've fairly, posted on my stories, kind of getting people to reach out. But I think if people listen to these kind of like through their feed, that's great. But I don't know. I kind of like wanting to do this just for my own personal. This I want to get better at speaking into a mic because like this kind of it does kind of every time I do a podcast I am nervous. I panic whenever I kind of like get confuse my words. I want to just get better at speaking. I keep saying like and and it just it's not really a good habit to get into. And I think by doing this I will get better at learning because when you teach something or discuss something with someone else, you learn more by doing that. And yeah, as well, I just want to do this just because I want to just enjoy podcasting. I don't want to do it because I feel like I have to. Um, like I don't make any money out of this. It's just kind of something I started during COVID, and I've just been so on and off with it. And I wanted to do it because I know the longer I leave it, the less likely I'm going to do it. So it's like my second one in like 10 days, and yeah, I was just thinking of something to discuss today, and there was a lot of things that I could discuss, and I didn't want to talk about something that I discussed before, because I don't want to be repetitive, and I don't want to basically just repeat information, the same old ground. Like I know it is better to learn the more, that saying where I just done it again, where I just basically just went and like, but you basically learn more, or the best time to learn something is when you read it again or listen to it twice. That's when like, or what's that saying? The best book you read is the one that you read again. So I don't want to keep like repeating myself. Now I'm not even making any sense. But the point is, I'm going to talk today about reading. So unlocking your reading potential. A lot of people these days don't read anymore because we're in a world that's saturated with quick headlines, endless scrolling, and constant notifications. And like, honestly, the idea of sitting down with a book can feel like a monumental task for many of us. Maybe you've got a growing stack of books that you've bought and meaning to read, or you bought one at an airport and it's just collecting dust, or you start a great read or a new read with great enthusiasm only to hit a wall a few chapters in. If this sounds familiar, you're not alone, because I think all of us are like that these days compared to, it depends what age you are, but I think I'm in my 20s, late 20s, and I used to find it way easier to read when I was a kid compared to now. Well, I can read now, but back when I tried to start reading like a few years ago, I found it very difficult to concentrate more than 5 minutes. So today we're going to take and tackle this challenge head on. We're going to talk about the best ways to read effectively and, more importantly, enjoyably, even if you consider yourself a struggling reader. So the first question would be, why is reading harder than ever? And to be honest, like being focused and trying to read isn't as intuitive for many of us as it once was. Like our brains, through constant exposure to social media, we are increasingly conditioned for short bursts of information, and we're used to quick dopamine hits from likes, comments, and rapidly changing feeds, like due to the algorithms. Johan Hari, from who wrote the book Stolen Focus, really discussed this in great detail. And basically, the engineers that created these apps, or not create these apps, but like that work in these apps, they create algorithms to help us, or not help, well, to basically, the apps want to keep us in them. So the apps gain money every single time that, or the longer you spend in the app. So they create algorithms to keep you in the apps, and then advertisements will come up as well, and you might be more likely to click an advertisement and they get a bit of money from it. So it is, yeah, the apps benefit from you looking or staying in the apps. And the thoughts of sitting still with a physical book or even like a Kindle can feel, well, pretty slow, and it requires like a different kind of mental engagement. Distractions are endless, and if you have notifications on, you often have the TV in the background, family members like moving around, and our minds wander to our ever growing to do list. It's not really It's not really a failing or a lack of intelligence, but it's simply the reality of our modern, hyper stimulated environment. If you genuinely want to read more, whether for learning, for pure pleasure, or to deepen understanding of the world, or for personal growth, we need to be intentional about adapting our approach and creating a supportive environment for ourselves. So, tip number one: how to start reading. Um, what I did when I started a few years ago was I started small and built momentum. Um, Basically, the first crucial tip is, echoing themes from my previous kind of what I was talking about there, is to start incredibly small. So this is about lowering the barrier to entry so drastically that it's almost impossible to say no. Forget the ambitious goal of reading for an hour a day right out of the gate. This is the classic recipe for burnout, frustration, and ultimately giving up. Instead, just commit to something almost ridiculously easy, something that may feel like minimal effort. So for example, I would suggest reading just for 5 minutes. Don't even think about the chapters or page or the number of pages. Just set a timer on your phone for 5 minutes, and when it rings, you're done. Feel free to close the book. The beauty here is that you'll often find yourself so engrossed that you'll naturally continue reading for 10, 15, or even 20 minutes without even thinking about it. But the commitment was only five. And I would also suggest just to read, even if you can't do that, just read one page. So again, it almost sounds, you know, it almost sounds like so small, but the point is that you build up a habit, you build consistency. Like when you go to the gym for the first time, you're not going to be, your day one's the same as the journey of the most jacked guy in the gym. Like he started as well very small, so your consistency is king. So you read one page at a time. So one page every single day means 365 pages in a year, which is a pretty decent sized book, even two books. So the focus is on the quantity today, but on building the muscle of showing up daily. And then even if you really are, if your focus is completely shot to the ground and you feel completely overwhelmed, then just aim for one solid paragraph. Just get your eyes on the words, engage for a few sentences. The victory here isn't about the amount of content you consume, it's about the act of showing up and maintaining consistency. When you consistently perform even a tiny action, you're reinforcing the identity of the person you want to become, in this case, a reader. Once that tiny habit is ingrained and feel effortless, you naturally find yourself expanding without conscious effort. And I'm doing it again, aren't I? But sorry, I literally have a book and I have like kind of little notes written down, a little one liner. So if it sounds like I'm reading, I probably am, because I am reading a few lines that I wrote out of a book, or my diary, should I say? Because I like to have a little bit of a plan to read before I start a podcast. I don't know. I just find it really does just kind of ground me in case I kind of lose trail of what I'm speaking about. I have these notes just to keep me back on track. So okay, tip number two I have is create a dedicated and distraction-free reading environment. So our environment plays a massive but often underestimated role in our ability to focus and immerse ourselves in the book. So for example, if you're trying to read in a noisy room with a TV kind of TV on the background, your phone is constantly going off, and a million other things demanding your attention, you're setting yourself up for an uphill battle. So find your reading like nook. So this doesn't have to be like a grand library or a custom built sanctuary. Like it could be like your chair by a window, or a quiet corner of your bedroom, or a cafe, or even a bench in your local park. The key is that it's a place you consciously associate with reading and minimal distractions. So the more you use it for reading, the easier it will be for your brain to switch into reading mode when you sit there. And I would then suggest to silence those notifications. So this is like the most crucial step for many of us. Put your phone in silent mode, place it in the room entirely, or at the very least face it down where the screen won't tempt you. If you have your notifications on, they can all wait for 5, 10, 15 minutes of dedicating reading time. Treat your reading with the same respect you give to a meeting or an important task. And of course, underrated tip that many people would hear of is consider some background noise. Now, people are going to be like, "What? Why would I listen to something in the background after you just said not to have noise in the background?" But I mean, like complete silence is the ideal environment for deep focus. But sometimes I listen to classical music or ambient kind of music, and it kind of does help block out internal distractions or external sounds that can't be eliminated. So when you think of like, ambient sounds, think of like white noise, gentle rain, it's even a bit of orchestra music. It does be. I think it personally, it can be incredibly helpful. I find myself to absorb the information a bit better. I don't know if that's just maybe placebo, but I definitely think if I have a bit of classical music in the background, it kind of stops me doing something else on my phone, I feel. But the key to instrumental music is with no lyrics, and lyrics can, engage the language processing parts of your brain that you need for reading, becoming a distraction rather than an aid. But again, I think this one is one you should experiment and see what truly works for you and your focus. And tip number three, well, I actually have four tips written down here, but I'll go over the third one. So the third one is to set clear and achievable goals. So just like with any other skill or personal development goal, setting clear goals for your reading can be incredibly motivating. However, these goals need to be realistic and flexible, not rigid demands that lead to guilt. So every year, or at the start of the year, I'll set a goal to read. I'll write down all the books I've yet to read, and I'll aim to read, I don't know, maybe 20 books to read. And then once I put down which book I'm going to read first, and then once I tick that off, I go to the next one. I try to aim for 20. So far this year, I'm on 9 books this year that I've read, and I'm going to try aim for 20. I think the most I ever did was like 35 or 36, but like a lot of them were kind of small books, and then there's a few big ones, but I read a lot more back then. I don't really read as much anymore. Like I would read about maybe 20, 30 pages a day, but I didn't revolve my life around reading. But yeah, time per day over pages per day. Instead of committing to, I'll read 20 pages a day, which can feel overwhelming if the text is dense or if your energy is low. So try, I'll read for 15 minutes, which is kind of what I do before I go to bed. So I'll set like a timer of like 20 minutes, and then I'll probably read about 20 pages. It depends how fast and how well you can absorb the information that you're reading. So the time-based goal is often less intimidating because you're just committing to the effort or the practice, not a specific output, which you just need to show up for the time. And again, I would use a simple tracker. This could be like a habit tracking app, or even just a note on your phone that can provide a visual record of your consistency. Like, don't make it a chore. Make it a satisfying visual reminder of your progress and a motivator to keep your streak going. And don't, again, if you don't like the book, don't be afraid to put the book down. Like, this is like, I've done this so many times where I've just read a book that I really did not like, and I was just stubborn. I needed to finish it, and I just was like, why did I waste my time with this book? But if you are in a few pages or a few chapters into a book, it's simply not grabbing you, and you're slogging through it out of a sense of obligation, you just abandon it. Like, don't force yourself through something you genuinely dislike or that isn't serving your reading goals. There's literally, a million amazing books out there that are waiting to be discovered. Like, giving up on one book doesn't make you a failure. It frees you up to find a book you'll truly enjoy and finish. The goal is to read and not to suffer. Tip number 4 I'd have, and the last one, is to mix it up. So vary your reading material and format. So sometimes the struggle isn't with reading itself, but with the specific type of reading that you're attempting or format that you're using. So, if I would normally read nonfiction, but if I tried to read, I'm trying to think. If I'm trying to read like a sci-fi fantasy or a crime book, that wouldn't really pull me as much compared to like a non-fiction book. But again, that you might be the opposite. You might enjoy a fiction book, but if you try to read a non-fiction book that's about business, you would probably struggle with it. So again, it comes down to personal taste. You need to sit down, read a few pages of a book if you're in a bookstore, and see what kind of pulls you. So try different genres. That's what I'd suggest. I think fiction probably is the easiest if you're completely new to it, because you can use your imagination with fiction while you can't really with non-fiction. Explore different formats. So you can use audiobooks. You can use a Kindle. You can use short stories or an article. You don't always need to commit to a full length novel. Reading well with written articles, insightful essays, or even engaging short stories can be like pretty good and a great way to build your reading muscles without the pressure of a longer commitment. And websites like Longform or various literary magazines offer excellent options. And then even if you wanted to try, if you follow people that write Substacks, like that's something as well that you can do. And also an extra tip that I have is to, I know not everybody does this, but if you try to meditate before you read, I definitely find that to be extremely helpful because you're kind of locked in and present. I think when you try read um out like just out of nowhere, like you could be stressed about your day, you could be like stressed about what's to come tomorrow, you could be stressed about something that happened a few days ago. But if you meditate, you're more likely to be kind of like locked in and basically present with the book, which look again, everyone has their own different battles, but I definitely find meditation, especially after like a day of work or in the morning and then reading, I just find myself absorbing the information much better. And another extra tip I would find or I'd suggest is buy a book. If you're going to buy a book, buy one that's like so small, like it's literally no more than 100 pages, because I find when you have a book that's like 500 pages, really small writing, really difficult language, it's going to be really, it's going to be overwhelming. And I definitely find with the the small books you can get through them very very quickly. So I think if you're, it depends on what. I can give some recommendations for non-fiction, like Make Your Bed is very small. That's very handy. The Compound Effect is so you easily read it in a day. Eat That Frog is also a good non-fiction self-help book that you could easily finish in like a day, like 100 pages, big writing, or sorry, big, the format's big, like it's very very simple. Like even if that took you like a week, it's still something, like something's better than nothing. So yeah, that'd be my tip. Like, don't, if you're gonna buy a book for the first time, buy one that's like 100 pages, like no more. Like don't go buying 300, 400, 500 like page books, because 9 times out of 10 you're not gonna finish them. Like you really won't. Not in this day and age, unless you're like really driven or you've just concentration of a saint. And then yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Like reading is a truly a skill, and like any skill, it improves with consistent practice and the right strategies. I would say don't beat yourself up if it feels hard right now. Like acknowledge the genuine challenges of our modern, distracted, filled world, and then empower yourself with these tips. Again, you don't need to pick one or two of them that resonate the most for you. Implement them consistently, and again, just be patient with yourself, because everyone has a different ability of focus, and everyone has a different interest in reading. So one person probably hasn't read a book in about 20 years, and one person reads maybe once a year. Again, you know, pick pick a book that speaks to you most, or pick a genre that speaks to you most. So every page, every minute, every tiny commitment to your reading practice builds towards unlocking a richer, more informed, and more imaginative life. And the rewards of reading are immense, from expanding your knowledge, your vocabulary, to fostering empathy and simply providing a wonderful escape. So yeah, I'm going to wrap it up there. But from my own personal experience, I definitely think reading's definitely helped me change my life in, I don't know, I think I feel like I'm a better person when I read. I don't know, it's like really rewarding, I find. I find myself just a bit better I find myself a bit more just nicer. Like I'm more like mature. Is mature the word? More. I got because I'm doing a podcast now. I'm like panicking. But I'm just more. I have my emotions are a bit more under control. Like I just feel better. Comparing, if you compare like 1 hour of being on social media compared to 1 hour of reading, most people find they're nowhere near as anxious after an hour of scrolling compared to reading. If that makes sense. So I don't know. I definitely find that has changed me a bit. And it's probably something I'd like to keep going for the rest of my years. It's something I make sure it's like a non-negotiable for me. You know, it's like brushing my teeth for me at this point. Like I will read like every most nights before I go to bed, or if I don't read them before I go to bed, I'll read throughout the day. If I'm not working or if I'm on lunch or something like that. So yeah, thank you so much for joining me today. I'm not going to put this up on social media. This is like my own personal project, just me rambling just to get better at speaking, because again I still get nervous doing these podcasts, and I don't know, I just want to just I think if I feel better about myself doing these podcasts, I feel like this will kind of snowball into something else. And I don't know, I'm trying to, again, I know I'm waffling here, but I'm trying to just, I feel like if I do one good thing, it might give have a snowball effect to do other good things. So yeah, I think a podcast is a good start. I am uploading stuff onto my Instagram, just trying to, I guess, improve the quality of people's lives. So a lot of people do feel a bit stuck, and trust me, I'm stuck myself as well. Like like we all have the moments of feeling lost, confused. I think it's just having a bit of a midlife crisis. Yeah, it's called being in your 20s, but yeah, again, I hope these tips help. What's if you do listen to this podcast, take anything from it. What tip would you try, or what are you going to try this week to become a more consistent reader? I'd love to hear more about it. If you have any questions, please leave in the comments, or if you have my social media, just message me on that. More than happy to help out. And if you need any book recommendations as to start, I am happy to send over a few. So yeah, thanks very much, and until next time, happy reading.